We will ask him every single question I can think of on this topic. Don Jr., good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
Appreciate it.
I didn't know there was any time left.
I've been told that before, but they're highly rated opening monologues.
I like it.
And I figured while I have a captive audience, I wanted to get my points out to them. Let's start with the emails.
Yeah.
Let's start with the first email. First of all, let's talk about who is Rob Goldstone.
Rob Goldstone is a talent manager for Emin Argalov, who's a Azerbaijani Russian singer, performed at Miss Universe and later performed at the WGC Championship golf course tournament that we held at Doral.
All right, so do you know...
I met him through the golf course. I wasn't even at the Miss Universe pageant, but I met him throughout there, so I had a casual relationship.
With him. Okay. So he sends you this email. We'll put it back up on the screen and give you a chance to look at this. This is the one that says the Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father, meaning Emin's father, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with documents, information that could incriminate Hillary Clinton, etc. Obviously highly sensitive information, but as part of Russia and its government's support of Mr. Trump. And then they asked the best way to handle this. This email comes in. What are you thinking?
Honestly, my takeaway when all of this was going on is that someone has information on our opponent. You know, things are going a million miles an hour. You know what it's like to be on a campaign. We just won Indiana, but we're talking about a contested convention. Things are going a million miles an hour again. And, hey, wait a minute. I've heard about all these things, but maybe this is something. I should hear them out.
Okay. When you read the parts about the Russian government or Russia supporting your father, did that put off any sirens in your head?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think this was, again, just basic information that was going to be possibly there. I didn't know these guys well enough to understand that if this talent manager from Miss Universe, you know, had this kind of thing. So I wanted to hear him out and play it out and see what happens. But, you know, people are trying to reach out to you all the time with this.
All right. So you spent a lot of time talking about it, and you actually said at one point that, hey, if it turns out to say what you say it is,
of course.
What did you think it might be?
Listen, I've been reading about scandals that people were probably underreporting for a long time, so maybe it was something that had to do with one of those things. I mean, this was her, perhaps, involvement with the Russian government. So, you know, again, I didn't know there was any credibility. I didn't know if there was anything behind it. I can't vouch for the information. You know, someone sent me an email. I can't help what someone sends me. You know, I read it. I responded accordingly. And if there was something interesting there, I think it's pretty common.
What about the timeline of this? This is pre, for example, WikiLeaks and the DNC
honestly,
emails.
This is pre, Russia fever. This is pre-Russia mania. You know, this is 13 months ago, before I think the rest of the world was talking about that, trying to build up this narrative about Russia. So I don't even think my sirens, you know, went up, or the antennas went up at this time because of it, because it wasn't the issue that it's been made out to be over the last, you know, 9 months, 10 months, since it really became a thing. So I think there is an element of context to that. At the time, it wasn't this big news story.
All right. What did you know about Emin's father? What did you know about them from Moscow? Was it just the pageant you met them at?
They had the pageant, and they're
concert?
Successful real estate developers over there. So, you know, that's the extent of, you know, my knowledge with them. I'd met Emin once or twice. And, you know, maintained a casual relationship there, talked about some potential deals, and that's about the extent of it. They really didn't go anywhere.
What do you know about this Russian lawyer? What did you at the time, if anything, know about?
I actually didn't know anything about it. Again, an acquaintance, you know, sent me this email. As a courtesy to him, I said, okay, let's meet. But I didn't know who I was meeting beforehand, never heard of the person, never got the information until they were in the room.
At any point were you told, either in a phone conversation or otherwise, what they might tell you, what Goldstone seemed to be implying you would receive?
No, as I recall, it was all basically this email coordination. Let's try to set up a meeting and see what happens, and that it was going to be interesting information. And, you know, in the end, it wasn't about that at all.
Let's go into the meeting. All right, so you meet at Trump Tower.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting was described earlier today on the Today Show. Did she describe it accurately?
I think fairly accurately. I mean, I was a little taken back by her saying, you know, talking about me pressing for the information. But as you can see from the emails, the pretext of the meeting was, hey, we have information. And there was, you know, some small talk. I don't even remember what it was. It just was sort of nonsensical, inane and garbled, and then quickly went on to, you know, a story about Russian adoption and how we could possibly help. And really, that's where we shut it down, which is, wait a second, what does this have to do with
Did you even know what the McGinty Act was?
I'd never even heard of it before, you know, that day. You know, I think it became pretty apparent to, you know, Jared and Paul, who I think Jared left after a few minutes. Paul got in on his phone.
Said that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Do you
her
remember
account. I
calling
do
his
remember that. Yeah, we were all there. I was basically sitting there listening as a courtesy to my acquaintance who had set up the meeting. And, you know, in his own words, you can hear what he said, and you played it earlier, about it. I mean, he apologized to me walking out of the meeting basically for wasting my time.
Well, and he did say at the end of your statement today, you did point out, as Goldstone said today, the entire meeting was the most inane nonsense I've ever heard, and I'm actually, you know, agitated by it.
Yeah, listen.
And he called and apologized to you?
No, there wasn't really follow-up because there was nothing there to follow up. You know, but as we were walking out, he said, listen, I'm sorry for that. But I think what happened, he sort of goosed up. He built up. There was some puffery to the email, perhaps to get the meeting, to make it happen. And, you know, in the end, there was probably some bait and switch about what it was really supposed to be about. And so, you know, there is nothing there.
So she is saying that she had no information to provide. Do you remember, but she's suggesting that you were pressing her a little bit for information?
I imagine I did. I mean, I was probably pressing because the pretext of the meeting was, hey, I have information about your opponent. It was this, you know, hey, some DNC donors may have done something in Russia and they didn't pay taxes. I was like, what does this have to do with anything? You know, especially in light of everything that was out there. I was like, this isn't
Did you ever have any contact with this woman again?
No.
Did you ever have any contact with Goldstone again?
Casual, hey, how's it going? Emin's going to be in town performing, something like that. But
did you ever see Emin again? Except that, well,
I don't believe so, no.
I
don't think I've seen Emin since this transpired.
Okay, so this is a hypothetical. In any point in your mind, did Don Jr. have a siren saying, okay, they're talking, again, I go back to the first email, about Russia, Russian government, I'm meeting with this person, you were going to talk on the phone. Did you ever think, maybe this might not be?
Listen, I think, like I said, in retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently. Again, this is before the Russia mania. This is before they were building it up in the press. For me, this was opposition research. They had something, you know, maybe concrete evidence to all the stories I'd been hearing about, but they were probably underreported for, you know, years, not just during the campaign. So I think I wanted to hear it out. But really, it went nowhere, and it was apparent that that wasn't what the meeting was actually about.
Okay, let me ask a hypothetical, and I know hypotheticals, maybe you've thought about it since, and since this has now become Russia collusion,
yeah.
Russia collusion, and et cetera. Did you ever meet with any other person from Russia that you know?
You know, I don't even know. I've probably met with other people from Russia,
I mean,
but certainly
not
in the context of a formalized meeting or anything like that, because why would I? You know, in the grand scheme of things, how busy we were, it was much more important to doing this. This was a courtesy to an acquaintance.
Let me play a montage, and these are Democrats attacking you today, and give you a chance to respond to what they're saying and what the left is saying. I mean, they have taken it to the ultimate extreme. And then I'll ask you about some perspective about some of my comments at the beginning of the show. Here's what they're saying.
We now know that through intermediaries, the Russian government sought to approach the Trump campaign to see whether they would be interested in damaging information about Hillary Clinton. We now know that the response that the president's son gave to the Russians was that he would love it if they would provide damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Rather than report this overture by the Russian government to provide damaging information to intervene in the presidential election in a way to help his father, neither the president's son nor the campaign reported this information to the FBI.
We get this email exchange today showing clear collaboration between the Russian government and Russian government agents and the Trump campaign at the highest levels, where the email is very clear that the Russian government is weighing in to help elect Donald Trump.
We need Donald Trump Jr. and other campaign associates to turn over any and all documents and electronic communications that investigators asked for. And we need public testimony under oath of Donald Trump Jr., who has changed his story repeatedly.
We're now beyond obstruction of justice in terms of what's being investigated. This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
Schumer's, did you hand over any and all documents?
Well, I will. I've said it publicly. I said it yesterday. more than happy to cooperate with everyone. I just want the truth to get out there. I mean, that's part of why I released all the stuff today. I wanted to get it all out there. They're trying to drag out the story, in all fairness. You know, they have it. They want to drip a little bit today, drip a little bit then. So I was like, here it is. I'm more than happy to be transparent about it, and I'm more than happy to cooperate with everyone.
So as far as you know, as far as this incident is concerned, this is all of it?
This is everything. This is everything.
Was anybody else at any point in the campaign said, oh, I've got information about Hillary that you remember?
No.
Let me go back to what Tim Kaine said. Well, if it is what you said you're at, especially, you know, you'd want it released later in the summer. You think that's unusual for a campaign to want op research? And I'll get to the Ukrainian issue, which I think has been underreported, especially in light of this coverage. But
well, like I said, I think we had more important things to worry about. I wasn't sure of the credibility of any of this stuff. At the time, I'm sitting there, Indiana had just probably happened. You know, I'm worried about hearing a contested convention. So, you know, we're in a fight. This is the first time we've ever done any of this. This was, you know, I'm still way in the learning curve on all of this. So it wasn't that urgent to me if I'm saying, hey, it can wait till the end of summer. But, yeah, obviously I want to hear the information. I mean, that's what we do in business. If there's information out there, you want it, and then you make what you do with it. If there was something that came from it that was shady, if it was a danger to national security, I would obviously bring it right to someone. But I didn't know what anything was. It turns out it was nothing. And therefore, there's nothing to be able to actually talk about.
The whole contact took how long? How long was the meeting?
Oh, 20 minutes or so.
About 20 minutes. And Jared left after 5 or 10?
Yes.
Like she said? And Paul Manafort was on his
phone.
The whole time?
Pretty much. Listen, like I said, it became pretty apparent that this was not what we were in there talking about.
A lot of people are going to want to know this about your father. Did you tell your father anything about this?
No. It was such a nothing. There was nothing to tell. I mean, I wouldn't have even remembered it until you start scouring through the stuff. It was literally just a wasted 20 minutes, which was a shame.
All right, so we're going to take a break. We'll come back.